Hello, Brittany.
Hello.
How you doing? Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having
I'm
me.
so happy to have you. So today I wanted to talk about your career, and I want to talk about all the wonderful things that you've been doing. I also want to talk about your band, Jacked Up, which I hear is one of the best bands in the area. This show, Jacked Up with K-Rock, which is me, obviously, is about music, and it's about all things rock and roll. It's about the rock and roll lifestyle. It's about all the fun and the energy that music brings to us, the passions that we have for music, what inspires us about music. So you're my first guest, so thank you for that, and welcome again.
All right. Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to lead off by saying to you, or asking you the question, what inspires you? What's your passion? What does music mean to you personally?
I mean, music's always been my passion ever since I was a little kid. Actually, I found out I could sing. I was in second grade, and every morning we had to sing the national anthem as a class. And one day my teacher was walking around, and she was like, "Everybody stop!" And she was like, "Brittany, come to the front." And she had me sing for the class. And I didn't really know yet that I could sing. I never sang for my family, anyone. And she called my dad, and because my dad was the stay-at-home dad at the time, and she was like, "Listen, like, do you know that your daughter can really sing?" And he was like, "Huh." So I went home, and he was like, "That's it. We got to get her in lessons, get her on stage." And next thing you know, I'm competing, I'm performing.
So can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
This is in the second grade?
Yeah.
Wow. So how old is somebody in the second grade?
7, 8 years old.
So the teacher,
Yeah.
knew that you were a little bit different than the others.
Yeah.
And that you had a skill at that young age.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. And so I started doing like singing competitions locally and stuff when I was, 9 or 10. And my dad introduced me to, all different kinds of older music. But I guess that's really kind of where it stems from.
So your father took the ball and ran with it
Mhm.
after getting that phone call.
Mhm.
And then you, I guess, had the confidence at that point by people telling you, your teacher, probably your classmates, your dad, that, hey, you're good at this. So it just fueled the fire.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So that's how it all started.
Yeah.
So talk about your education as far as the lessons involved, the trainings. I mean, did you go right into vocal training at that point?
I mean, within a couple months, yeah. And I was doing so I was getting vocal lessons, and we were doing musicals. I was in The Sound of Music and High School Musical and Grease and all these local performances. The Wizard of Oz. I was Dorothy. So just it started with musicals, and then I kind of realized once I got to maybe high school age that I liked the musicals, but I wanted to be more like with a full band and really perform.
Now, from that perspective, a full band. So that was, I mean, like you were at that point in a rock band that was separate from the school productions.
Well, my first like live music performance that wasn't, a school production or a local community theater. I had just sang karaoke for a like our high school show. I sang to a karaoke track, and the mayor was in the audience, and she heard me. And the mayor came and asked me to sing at her inauguration.
That's
And
impressive.
yeah, so she pulled me out of class. I'm a sophomore. She pulled me out of class. She was like, "Listen, I want you at my inauguration. I'm gonna have a live piano player. You're gonna sing in a month."
And what was the song?
It was America the Beautiful.
Okay.
So that was my first live performance, and there was just some kind of different feeling on stage with a live performance. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to get more into a full band. But so this piano player, he would have me come up and do like local shows with his full band. And so then I started getting into my own, and really once I was over like 18 and out of my parents' house, out of high school, that was when I really started performing more with live bands.
Okay, so you're out of high school,
Yeah.
and you're probably realizing that there's an opportunity there to make some money, right?
Yeah.
And start now. Were you able to play the bars and the restaurants? I mean, at that age, I think what's the world? If it's 21 drinking, I believe you're still able to work in a bar or restaurant that serves alcohol, even if you're 18, right?
18, yeah.
Yeah.
So I worked in a bar and club when I was 18. I was going to school. I was going to Berkeley College of Music, so I went there for a year. And I was still working in the bar scenes, making extra money, and I would perform locally in different clubs and venues. After a year, I did move to Arizona, and I still was, in the clubs, venues, corporate events at 19 years old. performing all over the
So let's
state.
talk about the Berkeley. So you went
Yeah.
there for a year.
hmm
So what inspired you to go there? I mean, there's a lot of other places you could have went, but why Berkeley?
It was the only school I applied to. Um, I knew that I wanted to do something with music. And so I kind of told myself and my parents they weren't happy about it, but I was like, that's if I don't get in there, I'm going to take a year to figure out where I want to go. So that was the only school I applied to. So I just went in, had my audition, and heard back 2 months later.
Now, is the curriculum there at Berkeley, is it just all music all the time? Or there's other things you study there?
I mean, you the only other class I had was like composition, like an English class. Otherwise, it was performance or learning. You can pick, based on what your major is. But mine was music performance, so mine was about vocal techniques and performing on a stage and interacting with a band, all that kind of stuff.
But how much did that help you? Because apparently you had talent before you got there.
Yeah,
How much can you credit that particular year there to honing your craft?
I definitely think that it helped, especially like my improvisational skills. That was like a class that I took and something that I really worked on, and also just meeting other great musicians that we helped each other and we gave each other tips, and so it was definitely a great experience.
So when you went to Arizona, where'd you go to school there?
Arizona State.
Oh, my nephew went to school there. I believe he got his master's there. That's a fun school.
Yeah,
Oh, great
it is.
campus. Great campus.
Yeah, I was their national anthem singer most of the time.
So
I
how
would
did
do all
that work? So like you're talking about like a college football game?
That was the only sport that was just their marching band, but I did the soccer, basketball, baseball. The reason that they didn't have a singer, it was the band at the time. And I was just emailing everybody on campus. I was like, let me sing the anthem, let me sing the anthem. And I just kept sending
Acapella?
videos. Yeah. And I just kept kind of bothering everybody at work at the school until eventually someone emailed me back and they were like, you know what? You can sing at our baseball game next week. And then I did a great job. And so they had me keep coming back and I did all the sports.
So what were some of the larger crowds you might have done at Arizona State? Because I remember that football stadium it was in Tempe, Arizona.
hmm
And weren't there like mountains around it?
Yeah.
Sun Devil Stadium.
Yeah.
It's
Sun
called.
Devil Stadium's huge. That was not one of the ones I sang at. It was like where the Arizona Diamondbacks play. That was where the baseball
Okay.
games were. So yeah.
Was that indoors?
No, it's outside.
It's an outside, and so there was large crowds. And you're singing. So
Yeah.
So was it a situation where you were nervous every time you had to get up and do it in front of so many people, or were you so good at it and so rehearsed that it was no
I still
problem?
get nervous every time I sing. I think it's a good thing though. It's just adrenaline. But even the basketball games and stuff had a huge crowd too. But I was always nervous. I still get
Well, I can attest to that
nervous.
because I perform with you on stage, so I can attest to that. But that's a good thing. It's a good thing to be a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say. Okay, so now you're in Arizona. So now you're playing in was it an '80s tribute or an '80s act band that you were with in Arizona?
Yeah. So we did all kinds of things though. We also had like a variety band. We did weddings and corporate events, but our main thing was our 80s theme. So I would dress up in the neon and we'd do all the 80s hits and I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
It's so funny because I was born in the '60s, so the '80s I was there, man. I was on the radio listening attentively. You're a younger person, so for you to be into the '80s, right? What got you into the '80s? Was it like your parents were playing it, and as
My
you were a
dad.
kid, so you
Yeah.
just loved it because you heard him playing it and you picked up on it?
I mean, yeah, I think that music, a lot of it is just that like nostalgia feeling. And so that was just what I grew up listening to.
See, I remember when MTV came out, so I remember the early MTV. I remember the early '80s, and I remember the Madonnas and the Police and all those first rounds of videos.
hmm
And me and my friends would sit in front of the TV set, and we couldn't believe what we were seeing. It was so cool, especially at nighttime when you came home, from a night of entertainment, and you're sitting in your living room before you go to bed, and you're watching this stuff, and it was mesmerizing. So
Yeah.
I love the '80s. Everybody loves the '80s, but I think it's great that you at a young age knew that, and you went and you that '80s tribute band must have really killed it.
Yeah, no, it was cool. There was nothing like it in the area. So that was definitely awesome for us. And it was a lot of fun.
So after Arizona, where did your career take you from there?
I was there about 5 years. And then I decided I wanted to change. It was kind of during the whole pandemic time. And so, unfortunately, a lot of the venues that I was performing at either had different, stricter rules about live performances, or they just couldn't keep going and they were shutting down. And so I just was like, you know what, maybe this is the perfect time to, have a change. And so I took a trip to Florida and I tried out different areas. I stayed in Miami for a bit. I tried Tampa, St. Pete, and even Jacksonville. And I was like, where am I going to end up? And I just kind of fell in love with St. Pete. And I was like, you know what? That's where I'm going to go. And I just kind of packed up and drove a U-Haul across the country.
Now, prior to that, you have a skill set where you actually got a degree and you got education. Tell us about your job and your career, your day job.
So psychology is what I was studying. I was a preschool teacher in Arizona, and I was going to transfer to the same company and start doing that here. And when I got here, I just saw a job opening for a behavior technician. They were going to pay for my certification and my training, and I was like, you know what, I'll go into this interview and see what it's about. And so, for what that is, it's working one-on-one for kids primarily with autism, and giving them the functional skills to get by on their day-to-day life and routine, whether it's in the school, the community, or in their clinic. And so I was like, you know what, this is awesome. I love this. And so I went, got certified, and I was there for 2 years, and then went to another company, was there. And currently, I did decide to steer a little bit away from that field. I just signed a contract. I'm going to be a music performing arts teacher at a private school, but the school also does specialize in helping kids with disabilities as well.
So it's amazing. You're combining your two passions together into one.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And, from my experience, it takes a very special person to be a teacher, let alone working with disabled children. That's even harder. So, it takes a big heart and a lot of patience, right?
I mean, yes, I have a lot of patience for children. I guess not adults. But yeah, no, I mean, I love it. So for me, it doesn't really feel like work.
So the nice thing is that you can have your day job and then you can do your singing at nighttime and supplement your income with the singing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but even now I'm still going to be incorporating music and performing arts and stuff, and still doing what I love during the day.
So St. Pete is currently your home, but you're from Massachusetts. Do you still have family there?
Yeah, my mom and sister up there. My dad's in South Carolina now.
It's so funny because everybody that I'm meeting from here, down here, I should say, in Sarasota, is either from Michigan, Ohio, or they're from New England.
Michigan.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I meet a lot of people from New England for sure.
Oh, well,
Jersey and New York.
Because as a New Yorker myself, I think I gravitate really easy to people from the Boston, New York area.
Yeah.
Because we're all kind of similar in a sense.
Yeah.
But a lot of good people. I met a lot of really good people from the Midwest too that come to Sarasota.
Yeah, I mean, Florida.
Everybody's from somewhere. Isn't it
Yeah.
funny how when you meet people here, I always ask people, I say, hey, where are you from? Because it kind of gets me an opportunity to kind of size them up. Even Kyle, our producer today, I asked him where he was from. He's from here. So sometimes, people that come, move down here will have a family and then they'll have, start meeting the kids that grow up to be adults.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I'm from here, which I kind of find it funny because, my philosophy is that, oh gosh, the Northeast is the best place to live and the best place to grow up. And, I had such a wonderful experience there.
I wouldn't go back. It's too cold.
Well, yeah, there's definitely that, when you get used to living down here, right? You get used to the weather.
Yeah.
But from a performing perspective, I think there's more opportunities down here. I think there's more venues down here. I think there's more bands down here because we're in a high traffic, hospitality industry with there's a lot of visitors that come down, a lot of snowbirds, right? The population will grow, 30% during season. There's a need for it.
Yeah.
And so the wonderful thing about here versus the Northeast, my friends that are still performing up there, they'll tell me they don't nearly get as many gigs and as opportunities as we do down here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Especially just where you can kind of be outside year round too. So you've got beach bars that have live music, or you got indoor venues. I mean, up north, sometimes it's too cold. No one even goes outside.
True. Well, fantastic. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about music, some of your favorite bands, some of your favorite songs, some of the best concerts you're going to.
Okay.
All right. We'll be back in a second. So, Brittany, this show's about music, right? Specifically rock and roll music. I guess pop too.
Okay.
But it's about, rock and roll, the rock and roll lifestyle. And I'd like to ask you some questions more about music now, more about like, what are your favorite bands? What are some of the bands that you love? We could talk about the ones that you grew up to. We could talk about the ones that you currently are listening to now.
One of the first female artists that I ever really got into was actually Pat Benatar. My dad, I had one of those little Walkmans. Is that what you call them? And he gave me her CD, and I would just listen to it on repeat all the time. And I loved her voice, and I was I I would imagine myself on stage one day singing stuff like that.
That's a great first artist to have. I mean, Pat Benatar to me was the first as a young man, that was mostly a male dominated rock scene.
Mm,
She came on the scene and she was like, in my mind, the first rocker.
right.
I mean, Madonna was more pop and dance, but Pat Benatar, she like, with the heavy guitar and bass and her husband, that was just what a great way to start.
Yeah.
Was it like her greatest hits or like her first record or something?
I wish I could tell you like what it was, but it had like Heartbreaker and Hit Me With Your Best Shot, like those songs on it. So I don't know which album that was, but Promises in the Dark. But I would, like I said, listen to it all the time.
So would you then try to emulate her and try to like, sing like her and try to belt out a couple Pat Benatar songs?
I mean, yes, but I always something that my vocal teacher would always say too was make it your own. So I never really wanted to try and copy anyone's voice. I always wanted to have my unique thing that sets me apart.
Did you ever see Pat Benatar in concert?
No.
So my good buddy Larry, who's in our Jacked Up, his wife had purchased tickets for a bunch of people. So we got to go see as a group. We went to the Van Wezel right here in Sarasota. We saw she had great seats. We were like center. I mean, like we had the best seats I've ever had. And we saw her play Pat Benatar, and she did everything but hit me with your best shot.
Interesting.
And I think her statement was that because it's about guns or it's about hit me with your best shot. There was a influence there of violence, I guess, that she didn't feel was appropriate anymore. So
Hmm.
she doesn't want to sing that anymore live. I don't know. We could check that on the Google, but
The Google.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
so who else after Pat Benatar? Who else?
I mean, I would listen to Journey. I've seen them live.
Now talk
Great
about a
concert.
singer. Talk about a voice.
Right.
Steve Perry, the most incredible voice. And somebody had a thing on Facebook. Who's the most like who has the best voice in rock and roll that you remember? And I think everybody voted for Steve Perry because it's so unique.
Yeah. I can agree. Phenomenal voice. I used to listen to Aerosmith. That was probably one of the best live shows that I think I've seen. I saw them in Vegas a couple of years ago.
Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Was that when they were doing their residency?
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard that was pretty cool.
Yeah, just a fantastic performance. We got really lucky actually, because the day of the show, they had these seats that were technically like on the stage. You were like on the side, and they gave you like in ears so you could actually listen to what the band heard and choose like whose mix you wanted to hear in your ears.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so the day of show, there were tickets for like $150 a pop, and those tickets were going for like over $1,000. So we got really, really lucky and were able to see them last second, and it was a phenomenal show.
So who did you listen to? Whose mix did you listen to?
Actually, I was listening to. I preferred the way it sounded like from the audience. There was like an option to like hear, like I don't know what you
What
call
the
it.
audience hears?
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen Aerosmith a few times, and I was supposed to go see them when they came to Tampa, but unfortunately, Steven Tyler hurt his throat.
Okay,
But I hear that they're going to come back, I believe, in February.
okay.
So that tour is going to resume. And they were playing.
He's still a great performer.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
mean, one of the best things that I think he ever did, besides making great records, is that he was on American Idol, and I think by being a judge on American Idol for those years, it exposed him to a much different audience. I mean, I think he brought on a lot of new people.
yeah.
Aerosmith even performed a few times, I think, throughout those years that he was on there. I know Joe Perry, his guitar player, I've seen him on the show. So I think it was great marketing from their perspective to get into a younger demographic through the American Idol audience.
Yeah. And talking about a great performer, we saw the Rolling Stones a couple weeks ago, and even at their age, they still put on such a great show. It was like very impressive.
Well, what was it like when you? I mean, I'm sure it was sold out. It was packed, right? It was crazy.
Oh yeah.
But like, what was it like when the lights came down and they first came on? Like, what was that? What was that feeling like?
Honestly, we couldn't even make it to our seats. We stood and watched from the side the entire time because everyone was just up and jumping around so crazy. And so we had a great view from where we were, but it was just, yeah, just everyone was very impressed too. Everyone just kept saying like, wow, I can't believe they're still performing like this at this age.
So it was a high level. And did they have the video screen so everybody could see
Yeah.
what was going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's? Somebody asked me one time what my thoughts were the greatest rock and roll band of all time, and it has to be the Rolling Stones for several reasons.
Okay.
The longevity of the band,
Yeah.
the hits, the fact that every country on the planet, you know, even some of these third world nations know who the Stones are. They know the Stones logo.
Right.
You know, there's some great DVDs that the Stones put out. One of them's when they did a Latin America tour.
Okay.
And it was interesting how the Stones went to Cuba. And there's a whole story behind that, how the Stones had never played Cuba. And Cuba didn't allow for that kind of music for many, many years. So the Stones got to go to Cuba and play. And the audience was having a great time. And they were very emotional because it was like they dreamed of seeing the Rolling Stones there and they got a chance to play.
Huh.
But yeah, they're by far the greatest band. I mean, whether you like them or not, I mean, you may say they're too old and it's time for them to step down. But I agree with you, man. I think the energy is there. That, you know, people love it. You could sing along.
Yeah. No, it was very impressive. I really hope that I'm still up performing like that when I'm that age.
Wouldn't that be something? I mean, I think they're 80, right?
Yeah, it might even be a little older. I don't know. It was just very impressive.
So interesting. So someone at your age is really digs on the classic rock. So like, you know, you're a fan of the classic rock. These are bands that we're talking about. Some of them that came out in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just like what I grew up listening to, and there is, I guess, some more current music that I listen to, but I just think that there's music has shifted a little bit, and the sound is different than what it used to be, and so I just gravitate
So
more.
do you mean like from a production perspective, like you like your rock and roll, you like your high energy guitar, bass, drums, as opposed to perhaps things that might be more overly produced,
Yes.
or might be more studio, you know?
Yeah. And I just have also just a respect for like raw, like vocals without auto tune and without like that nonsense. So it's just for me, just something that I really, really respect and relate to is just that like raw vocal.
Yeah, I think in the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s, there were certain bands that were still doing it live, you know, live to tape, or, you know, great live performers.
Yeah.
I think it's only been in the last 20 years that you're starting to see more people kind of doing things where they're cutting and slicing and dicing and doing opportunities through the computer to make themselves sound differently than they could ever produce live.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, it's still fun to listen to or dance to or whatever, and I understand some people enjoy it, but yeah, for me it's just because I am a singer too. It's just I just have a different kind of, you know, respect for it.
So do you enjoy playing music live?
I do. There's no better feeling than just like when the audience is cheering for you and you're on the stage. Like that is just like the best feeling in the world.
So you're in a popular local band called Jacked Up.
Hmm.
So how did that all happen? I'd like to hear your side of that whole story about how you came to Jacked Up.
Well, K-Rock, you reached out to me couple years ago, and I think at the time you had another, like it was two singers, like it was a male and a female, and I didn't really want to share the stage. To be honest, it was just too much 50-50, and so I was looking to get into a band, but found a different local band, and I went with them and realized that that wasn't really the band for me either. And right when I happened to be leaving my band, you were looking for a singer, and so it just kind of worked out. And things were different. You guys were playing a little bit different music, and you were just looking for one frontman. And so I felt like it was a good opportunity.
You know what I learned about having a lot of bands in my life is that it's not so much about the music, it's about the people that are in the band. You have to love your bandmates. I really believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not love them, but you have to enjoy your bandmates and want to be friends with them and want to get to know them outside of the stage, because it lends for a better experience. Because let's face it, we all know really good musicians, but perhaps maybe they're not the most personable or outgoing or friendly.
Yeah.
and so they're hard to get along with. So
Yeah,
then
that's fair.
so maybe they're playing really, really well, but then they're like, I don't want to be seen with this person off stage.
Well, and band chemistry is everything too. When you get along and you like each other and there's a good energy, you perform better. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone's gonna have a mess up on stage. But when you like the people you're around and you can all look at each other and be like, it's okay, like we can recover from this, you're gonna do better after that. When you're playing with someone that maybe has an attitude or you don't get along on that level, it's so negative that you make more mistakes because you're just so like unhappy to be there.
Right. And we've all been in situations like that where you're playing and you're not happy
And you're just
anymore.
so frustrated.
And
Yeah.
it's just a paycheck. But I truly believe when the energy on the stage is high and that there's a high level of fun, I think that translates into the performance and the audience picks up on that.
No, I totally agree.
I always like to let the people know a little bit about each of us as far as who we are, tell a little story on the microphone, and kind of like open up the band a little bit, some personality,
Right.
right? Because I think that people have more of an interest in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if you're just watching a band and they're just up there just singing a song and, deer in the headlights and there's no personality there, it's not as enjoyable or engaging and you're not going to remember them as if there's, something that sets them apart and, gonna feel.
So here's my side of the Brittany story. So
you never even heard me sing. I have to add that. You hired me before you never heard me sing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You put a lot of faith in me.
I did. Well,
I could have been terrible.
I think that lends to my experience and my maturity now that I kind of saw it and I knew it before I needed to see it. Like I could tell, right? And I don't want to lose you. So what happened was we needed a singer several years ago. And we always wanted to have a male and female. That was the way the band started, right? You have a male, female, and doing 50-50 and then some duets. So when our male person left, our female person was doing it. We hired another male person and then she left. So now we're like, okay, well, let's follow the cookie cutter formula and let's bring in another female. So I was completely straightforward with you when I reached out to you. I think it was on Band Mix or some professional musician site. Where I said very clearly, we want just 50% out of you. I mean, I could have not said that, but then I figured, why not? Why just tell her, just be honest and upfront and say, look, we're looking for someone to do that. And you, being the professional that you are and the young, with a lot of experience at your young age, you're like, no, I want to be the person. I want to be the main person. So that was cool. So what we did was we went with somebody else. We went in a different direction. And then I guess about 2 years went by and we needed a new person. And I'm like, we're just going to go with a female lead. That's it. And you happen to be available. And because I knew there were a lot of bands out there that were probably looking at you to hire I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to hire her, tell her she's got the job, and then we'll worry about everything else as it happens. So the first time you came in the studio to rehearse with us, I was actually like, gosh, I hope she's good. I hope she's good. It
was like 4 or 5 days before we had to like a show coming up or something. We had like a 90-minute like seafood festival set, I think. And I was like, what's he going to do if I can't sing?
That's another story.
Right.
When I was on a cruise and I wasn't there.
You weren't even there. Our first show, you weren't even there.
It was funny because our first show, I tried to get the promoter to change the date to the day before.
Right.
Because I think I was leaving on a cruise like on a Saturday and I could have done it if it was a Friday.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to change it for whatever reason. So I got on the boat and I'm cruising Tampa to Mexico with my family. It's like an annual trip. And the whole time I'm on my cell phone saying like, what's going on? I had my friends were in the audience and I was so happy when I'm getting texts back with thumbs up and like, she's killing it. She's awesome. And I was like, yes. And I was so relieved because I knew you could sing. It wasn't a question of that. I just didn't know how you were going to fit in and how it was all going to come together.
Yeah.
But it was a huge, huge success. I mean, even other singers from other bands that performed that day were saying nice things about you. And obviously the promoter saw it because he gave us a whole bunch of new dates after that. So it ended up being a home run. So everything worked out. Now here you are sitting here today.
Yeah, here I am.
All right, well, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Brittany, tell me about some of your favorite things to do in the St. Pete, Tampa area.
I love going to the pier in St. Pete. Beautiful view. Love getting food there, going up to the rooftop bar. They do little like dolphin tours there too, where you can kind of sail around and see dolphins. Love going out to eat.
Any particular restaurants that you fancy?
Yeah, my favorite restaurant in St. Pete is called Renzo's. It's like this, they call it like a Brazilian steakhouse kind of. I get this like platter. It's like 32 ounces of like different steaks, and they bring it out. And
So you're a meat
it's so
eater.
good. Yeah, it's all I eat.
You're a carnivore.
You know, well, I eat potatoes too. I like steak and potatoes.
So you're old school, steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's my diet.
Now, what about Italian food? Do you ever eat Italian, or is it not enough meat there?
No, I don't eat pasta. But most Italian restaurants have steak, so it works out.
So what's a good idea for a vacation for you? Like, where would you like to see yourself if you have a week off? Maybe 2 weeks. Where would you like to go vacation?
I like the Caribbean. I like palm trees, beautiful waters. So anywhere in the Caribbean.
It's funny. I've yet to go to the Caribbean. I've been to Mexico several times, but
Really?
my next cruise, my family likes to take cruises, right?
Yeah.
And so we try to do one a year, the siblings, right? So I think the next one we're going to go, instead of going Tampa to Mexico, I think we're going to go Miami or Fort Lauderdale down in the Caribbean.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Because I hear great things about it down there.
Oh, it's beautiful and it's just fun and I don't know, like a different energy.
When was the last time you had a nice vacation like that?
I went to Puerto Rico in September or October. Yeah, something like that. It was nice. It was fun. It was a quick little weekend trip, but yeah, I'm due for another one.
I'm due for a trip myself soon. The thing is, though, being a local musician, right, and being in a local cover band, there's so many opportunities here and there's so many commitments that it's kind of hard to get away. But the one thing I noticed here is that the summer's a lot different, right? A
Right.
lot of people get up and leave in the summer, and as you can attest, when we're playing some of these outdoor shows, it's quite uncomfortable.
No, yeah.
It's extremely hot and humid. Now, I don't know. Is it safe to say that we're off to a hotter summer now than we had previously? Because every summer seems to be the worst, right? Like last year was the worst.
It's hard for me to say. I mean, I've only been here a couple of years. I think it's just if it's hot, it's hot. I don't really. It's hard for me to judge that.
What's funny? I consider myself to be a Floridian now, right? Even though I'm originally a New Yorker, but I've been here 25 years, right?
Yeah.
So I would rather have the pain of those, 3, 4, 5 months of heat and humidity, so I can get those 2, 3, 4 months of pure, bliss.
I don't think it's that bad. Like I lived in Arizona, and I think that's worse because it's like 120
I think you're right.
in the summers.
I think you're right.
Like here, there's a breeze. Like you cool off. I really don't think it's that bad.
Well, you're probably not living that far from the coast, right? In
Right.
St. Pete, so you might get a breeze at night. But my friends that live in Texas, they tell me to stop complaining because apparently Texas is even more humid than it is
Yeah.
here.
Arizona wasn't humid. It was just really hot, but I don't really mind the humidity. Like it doesn't bother
Oh, really?
me.
Okay. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
It really bothers me. But one of the best places that I ever went to visit, and my brother used to live in that. Well, he still lives in the area, but the Newport Beach, San Diego area,
Okay.
California,
Yeah. I've been to
breathtaking.
San
The
Diego.
weather's fantastic. You wake up in the morning, there'd be some kind of cloud cover, right? And we're like, oh, it doesn't look so great. Then it burns off, and it's like it's a beautiful, majestic day, right? And there's no humidity, and it's just always like in the 70s, right?
Yeah, I used to go to San Diego a lot, just because I was so close by driving. So I would go to California all the time.
There's a famous hotel there called the Coronato, I believe, Hotel del Coronato
Okay.
in San Diego. My nephew and my niece got married there. And it was one of those good old fashioned barefoot weddings we're wearing tuxedos and whatnot, but we're barefoot
Okay.
and we're on the sand, and they got married there during the day in this beautiful, breathtaking hotel.
Huh.
And then we had the reception and whatnot. It was fantastic.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's very picturesque there. And the
Yeah.
wonderful thing about California, I lived in California once. I lived in Santa Monica for 1 year back in the 90s, and I worked for a company called Xerox. You obviously heard of Xerox. And it was unique because as a New Yorker moving to California, and experiencing that for 1 year and doing Santa Monica and doing the beach and whatnot. And then I started seeing a lot of music, a lot of concerts.
I can only imagine you in California.
Yeah, right? People used to actually make fun of my accent. And it's
Believe
funny
that.
because I don't think I have an accent. And I think the longer that I live here, the more distance I get from it.
I consciously try to not have an accent.
The funny thing about you, though, and I've tested this myself, you have a couple drinks in you. And if I kind of get you a little fired up,
Yeah,
your Boston accent totally comes out.
it does. Even if I'm not drinking though and I get angry, my accent comes out. But because I consciously try to not have one. So when I'm a little
But the
mad
alcohol
or
seems
the
to
alcohol,
loosen things
yeah.
up, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Like I used to do a lot with my hands, and I used to say the F bomb a lot. And I'll still say an occasional F bomb, and I'll still
Occasional.
do something inappropriate, you know?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think, you know, with being a salesman for as many years as I have and doing my corporate stints and whatnot, I've learned to tone it down and I can turn it on and turn it off. So like at nighttime, you know, when I'm the K-Rock, right, and I'm on stage, you know, it's all anything goes. But during the day, I tend to be a little bit more subdued and a little bit more, you
Huh.
know, laid back.
Yeah.
But so, what are your future plans? Where do you see yourself in 2 years from now, 4 years from now, even 10 years from now?
I'm a very spontaneous person. So like one day I was like, you know what? I just want to get up and live in Arizona. And then I was like, you know what? I want to live in Florida. So I try to take every day, day by day, because, you know, tomorrow's never promised. And I really love to live in the moment. And I changed my mind so much that I really couldn't tell you as far as where I'd be living but I know that I'd still be doing music in some capacity and working, you know, with children, whether that's, you know,
And those are two fantastic things that you could
yeah.
do for many, many years.
Yeah. And so I know that I'll still be doing that no matter where I'm living. But as far as like, you know, who I'll be around, where I'm living, I haven't, you
Now,
know,
do you consider yourself a homebody in the sense that you like to
no,
stay home and cook and watch Netflix and play with your dogs and stuff like that?
no. I do cook. I cook just about every night, but that's just because I really like to cook and I'm good at
What
it.
are some of your favorite things to cook?
I really only eat meat and potatoes,
So
so it's just a variety of like,
you'll grill a lot.
yeah, or I like to make like this like rib roast. I make that a lot sometimes. Like a slow roast, you know, and make that with some mashed potatoes or, you know, a variety of different
Now,
potatoes.
your protein intake is very high. Is that because you just happen to like meat, or you're
Yeah,
athletic? When you had at one point you had mentioned that you've done some female fighting, right? You were a competitive
I did.
boxer. Was it a kickboxing?
Well,
What was that?
mixed martial arts. So it was when it came down to actually fighting, it was, you know, you'd start like striking, hands and feet were allowed, and then take to the ground to submission is,
Okay, so
you know, like a chokehold or an armbar.
so this was a league. I'm assuming it was females only, right?
It was like different local schools. This was back when I was in Massachusetts, when I was doing that. So it was just the schools would compete against one another. So yes, I would only be against other
So you were trained
women,
like you
but
had a coach, and it was like like
yeah,
a team, right?
yeah. I black belt in MMA. I did it for I started when my dad got me into it. I didn't like sports. So he was like, well, you have to do something. So he made me do that. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I was like, I'm going to hate it. But I was really good at it. So then I started to like it. And so I started that. I was, yeah, probably 7 or 8 years old, around the same time that I started doing voice lessons. So I was very busy. Yeah, the day that I had voice lessons, that was my day off. And even on Saturdays, I would go train. So I was there every single day.
So you were
after
doing
school.
this stuff while you were singing.
Yeah. Yeah. Monday through Thursday, I was training. And so it was, my school was my instructor was like an MMA instructor, but really like my belt was in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Interesting.
So like Mondays would be like kickboxing. Tuesdays would be regular boxing and strength training. Wednesdays you'd wrestle or grapple. Thursdays you'd spar, get in the ring. So it was something different every day. And then Saturdays was like the more like where you'd belt train, right? So you'd take like your test for a belt if you were due for one, and that we'd wear our gi on Saturdays. But yeah, I did that every single day for 12 years.
So when you fought another woman, what was your overall record? Like how many fights did you have?
I mean, not like competitive, several. I mean, I did it every single day. But as far as like the competitions that we were in, I only lost one. There were 9 that I did.
And did your father then give you a nickname at that point?
He did. he, he used to call me Brutal Brittany, actually. But yeah,
Also, maybe the Britnator.
He did call me the Britnator, but that was more for like music stuff, he'd call me the Brittanator. That was my nickname. He still calls me that.
So you're doing music and you're doing the kickboxing and you're loving it.
Mhm.
Tell us about your American Idol experience.
I've tried out for that show a couple times. So my first time I was 15 years old. They had lowered the age, and it was the first time that I could audition. And the closest one to us was Pennsylvania. I was, begging my dad. I was like, "We gotta go, we gotta go." He's like, "All right, like, fine. I'll book the trip, and we'll worry about telling your mother after." Because I was gonna, have to miss school and stuff. And so we go to Pennsylvania, and we had to sign up the day before, and we're in this big the stadium there. I can't remember what the sports stadium is there, but it fits something crazy like there were like 12,000 people or something wild like that. And we went to sign up.
Was it Hershey Park by chance?
Well, Hershey Park's their theme park, I think.
But they have a stadium there too.
Is that what it's called?
They play the high school championship football games there.
I don't really remember.
Because I vaguely remember them coming every year. They would come to certain locations in the Northeast. But anyway, go ahead.
So the day before we sign up, we had to wait hours just to even like get a wristband to come back the next day. And they were like, "You have to be here at 5:00 in the morning." And we were like, "Oh, okay." So we go to the mall, we pick out a nice outfit, and go back to the hotel. We get up, we get there at like, I was a little late. I'm always late. We get there at like 5:30 or 6. My dad's like, "Oh, you're going to miss it." And I was like, "There's no way. There's probably like 13,000 people in front of us." So we get there, and there's this huge line, and we didn't even get into the stadium until like probably noon. And they were like, they made an announcement. It's going to be a long day. It's 7:30 at night. So
Wow.
I've been there all day.
12 hours.
Yeah. And the way at that point would have been 14 hours. Yeah. So they're like, we're going to start calling down the last couple groups. It's the end of the day. We know everyone's tired. And my dad's just looking at me. He's like, "Listen, there's lots of talented people. Like, don't be like too upset if you don't get it." And so we separated at this
And
point.
how old were you at this point?
I'm 15.
Okay.
So you had to have a guardian with you if you're under 18. So they stay with you up until you go down to the field. So I get to the field, and there's like 10 maybe like little tents, and each tent has 2 or 3 producers sitting in it. You walk up in groups of 5, and you sing like 30 seconds, and then they just cut you off. They're like, "All right, thanks." And so you just see all these people just leaving. And so I'm in the tent. We get up, we sing. I sing my 30 seconds. They're like, "Yep, thanks." And I'm like, "I hope I did okay." And they're like, "Everyone step forward except Brittany." So everyone steps forward. They cut their wristbands. They're like, "Thanks. Have a nice day."
Oh, so usually it's the opposite. If you step forward, you get to
Well,
go.
they didn't want to. I think that it was more of like, we don't want to, let everyone know you're making it, and they're not. It was like a less.
No, I understand it. It's different.
And so I just hear, they haven't even said anything to me yet, and I just see them though writing things down. They haven't talked to me. I just hear my dad screaming from like, because he can see me, and he's behind this like I don't know, like a divider or like a like caution tape kind of thing.
Sure.
And they're like, "Sir, you got to stay behind." And he's like, "That's my girl." And I just hear him screaming. And I'm like, and they're like, "Brittany, like, can you sing something else for us?" And I'm like, "Okay." I sing like 10 seconds. They're like, "That's enough." And I'm like, "Ah." And I'm like thinking like, did I ruin it? And they just keep writing. And then they just hand me the golden ticket. Don't even say like, "Oh, where?" And they're like, we'll see you back in 3 days." And I'm
Back
like,
where though?
there. They're like, "We'll see you back in 3 days."
You have to go back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So it means you have to go back to Boston and come back to Pennsylvania.
Right. So my dad is, before I even like get, because I would have been able to walk around and beat him, he like runs through security. They're like, "Sir," they're like going to tackle this man. And I'm like, "Calm down, Dad." And he's like, picks me up, spins me around.
He was
like,
excited.
"Yes." Oh yeah, he was crying. He was like, "This is the best." Then we get in, and we're signing like paperwork. So, we're signing NDAs, and we're doing all this. And my dad's sitting in the chair, and the chair actually broke underneath him. So he's sitting there, and it collapsed underneath him. They're like, "Oh, we're so sorry." And he's laughing. And I was like, "Oh my God." And but yeah, so they were like, "You have to come back in 3 days with 3 songs. You have to sing to tracks." And they gave like a list of things that like you could or couldn't sing. And I was like, "Oh my God, like we don't have a lot of time because our flight was out the next day. So like really we were home for like maybe 36 hours and had to go back. And so we went back and did it again and then had to go back a third time, and that was when I did like an interview and stuff. But yeah, it was a really good experience. Every time that I tried out and did it, it was a little bit different, but that one.
So did you try out for successful years, like 3 or 4 years in a row?
It maybe not in a row. They came to Boston at one point, and that's actually my dad and I got like a little shot on TV, and so everyone. This was back when people would watch. You would like sit up and wait and tape and watch American Idol, and you'd watch TV live. I feel like people don't do that as much anymore, but we sat and we knew because I had, successfully made it a few rounds that we were going to be on TV because of the interviews and stuff that I did and being mic'd up. And so we're like sitting watching and we're like, what are they going to show? And they showed a clip of me talking in line and my dad's just standing behind me, doesn't say anything. He's just standing there. And the phones start ringing, like, the house phone is just ringing off the hook. They're like, oh my God, we see you guys on TV. We see Brittany. And my dad would always pick up the phone. He's like, yeah, did you see me? Did you see me? I was on TV. It wasn't like, did you see Brittany? It was like, I was on TV. Did you see me?
He's living through his daughter.
Yeah. Did you see me?
That's great.
See me? And it was always like, and we always
so
laugh
it was live
about that.
then. It was live.
No, it was like the taping from
live to tape. So they saw a tape of you and okay, I got you.
Yeah, it was it was something like it was us waiting in line to go back for one of the days.
Gotcha.
Back after we had made it a couple rounds. So it was a smaller group. So they came up to me and mic'd me up and I was just having a conversation with someone in line and that's my dad just calling me, I was on TV. I was on TV. And it was funny too because the day of the Boston auditions was at a stadium where the Patriots play. So after I got my golden ticket, the team walked by us to go onto the field. And so my dad happened to be like behind me. And so he's like shaking their hands, like high-fiving the team. And so after like we get our golden ticket, we're about to go home. He starts calling everybody. And I'm thinking he's gonna be like, oh, Brittany's got a golden ticket. No, the first thing he says is, you wouldn't believe it. I just met the Patriots. And he's just telling everyone. I was like, he's like, I'm going to be on TV. And I met the Patriots. I was like, all right.
Now, do you still have the golden ticket? Like you saved it?
They take the golden ticket, believe it or not.
They don't, you can't keep it?
I got to keep my sticker. 63157 was the number that I had in Boston. I have it framed. It's sitting on my kitchen table.
And what was it like when you actually got the golden ticket? I mean, were you just ecstatic?
The first time,
were you screaming, jumping
the first
up and down?
time, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I actually did not scream or jump up and down. I was crying though. It was like a very, emotional moment because that kind of like you always, when you're singing and you're doing music, you always know that you're good. But I think like a moment like that is like I might have something special, because there's so many good singers and there's so many good people that don't even get a gold ticket. And with those shows, they're looking for, the it factor. They're looking for
great confidence booster for you.
Yeah.
At a young age.
It's just something that sets you apart. And
Right.
so these people saw something in me that set me apart.
Sure.
And so it definitely was like a really,
Were there other shows you tried out for? Other musical contests?
I've done them all. Yeah. I've, similar experience with all of them. But my favorite one is definitely.
You share with me a clip when you were 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I like to close our show and show that clip to our audience, if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. You're 11 years old and you're doing a Son of a Preacher Man by Dusty Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so cute. It was adorable. I loved it. I think that people need to see that.
That was like our, what do you call it? Like our town's American Idol. So same thing.
But you were 11.
I was.
Yeah, it was really
Well,
cute.
I was just trying to give a background story. It was the same thing is people would come in and the whole, all the towns in the area. It was like the whole county could come and audition.
Sure.
And so there were hundreds of people. And they only took 5 people from my age category to make it. And so same thing, my family was like, don't be too disappointed. But, we get the call. And I was 11. But yeah, my family, they made t-shirts and everything. We had like 50 people come and they made t-shirts that said like the one and only Brittany Jones. And we had like cowbells and like my dad's friend like wrote like a little song. It was like, you know that song like do I do a diddy dum diddy do, and he
Sure.
wrote one like to that tune, but it was like about me like being like their like town idol, and it was like, and they all sang it.
Oh, that's great.
And it was, it
Did
was
they
cute.
record it by chance?
They did. We have the
to
tape at
find it.
home.
We got to find it. That's great.
It's like on the DVD that they gave us after the
We'll
contest.
play that every year on your birthday. Well, in our final minutes, excuse me, let's talk about Jacked Up and the wonderful things that are coming up this summer. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing well, getting great gigs, having awesome shows. It's a lot of fun.
A lot of new music.
Yeah, a lot of disco, dance tunes. And I think that that'll really set us apart from other bands is, the variety.
You know what's changed this band the most, besides obviously you, is having a keyboard player. 'Cause
Yeah.
It opened up the door for a lot of different things that we've
New
never done
tunes,
before.
yeah, for sure.
So, folks, if you haven't seen Jacked Up yet, you can catch us. Go to www.jackedupband.com, or you can go tonight and search Jacked Up Sarasota, or you can look for us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter under Jacked Up Sarasota for all of our future dates. So, Brittany, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having
It was a
me.
pleasure to get to know you, and we will see you on stage this weekend, actually.
All right, I'll be there.
Thank you.